Hello everybody, my name is Walnut and we are back with another cast from r/castit. Today we have a Masters PvZ between our two players here. Up in the top right hand position we have our red Protoss player, Venus. And down in the bottom left hand position we have our blue Zerg player, asdasdasd. Sick. So, this is a pretty interesting map for Zerg because they have quite a few early options. Alright, it will be a Forge Fast expand out of our Protoss player. No 9 Scout out of him, which is interesting to me, because generally you do 9 Scout so you can see whether it's an early pool or a hatch first, or that sort of thing. Especially with a Forge Fast expand, you generally want to send that probe out so that you can get some sort of scouting information and potentially cannon rush the natural. Space has some pretty sick cannon rush spots. You can 2 pylon block this area and have a cannon in the back, and then the Zerg player can't really do anything about that with Zerglings. And then you can kill one of the pylons off and then scoot forward and build a cannon here, and then the drones can't prevent it. It's a pretty sick play. So he is moving a probe out now, but it will be a little bit delayed in getting to the natural base of the Zerg player, and he will already have his hatchery down. Just a little bit sad, but you know. There is the sort of cheese that a Zerg player can do where they put a hatchery right about here and then they break down these rocks with spine crawlers, and then there's already creep spread in the main base of the Protoss player, and it's incredibly hard to hold. But it looks like none of those shenanigans going on today. There is a drone patrolling back here, so no cannon rushes going to be going on today. This probe is going to be more sad than he's ever been, scooting on out of there with nothing getting done. Nexus does go down for our Protoss player at a fairly early time, actually. He is at 14 supply, which is fairly early for a Forge Fast expand. Generally, you throw on a couple more probes. You throw on up to 17 probes, and then you throw on these buildings, as well as the cannon and such, because it leads to a more economic opening, and you don't have to cut quite as many probes early. But, I mean, because it lines up better with the pylon. Like, you don't need to put this pylon down right now if you only have 14 supply. It's a bit of a waste, but no big deal. Just a few build order inefficiencies by our Protoss player here, which is standard to be expected. We should be seeing him throw down gas fairly soon. There we go. Need this. You need to actually throw on like usually a double gas with this sort of build. Yep, exactly. Because your gas is so late compared to your gateway that you need as much gas as you can get to keep up with your cyber core finishing and such. Looks like our drone here will be going to make the hatchery as soon as that 300 minerals is done. The probe will scout this immediately, which is very, very nice for our Protoss player. He won't be able to cannon rush this though, as there are already 2 Zerglings in play ready to stop that from doing any sort of shenanigans. Sad, sad probe. Now, Zerglings are very, very minorly faster than probes. It's like, it's such a small difference. See, like, the Zergling is marginally faster, but when it stops to attack, then it slows, or it gets behind quite a bit. So it's a little bit of a toss-up whether or not the probe gets home, because usually it can start to regen up shields and such. In any case, we don't have anything super spectacular going on for the Protoss player or the Zerg player right now. Generally, this is just a time for everybody to get their worker counts up. And then we should be seeing the Protoss player throw down their tech fairly soon, and that tech will decide the mid game. As Protoss usually dictates the matchup. If they're going for Blink, it forces the Zerg to go into like a Roach Hydra. If they're going Stargate, it forces, well, more Roach Hydra. If they're going into Robo, then it usually forces out something like Mutalisks. But it's interesting that there's no gas thrown on yet by our Zerg player. This means he's not looking to tech up for quite a while now. Generally, if I see these sorts of Zergling counts, which there's not a ton, I'm sorry about that. There is a Stargate on the way, by the way. So it will be into an Oracle and potentially Phoenix for our Protoss player. I'm really sorry about the production tab, boys. If we look at our units tab here, if I see 4 Zerglings and nothing else on the map right now, I would be expecting like some sort of later Mutalisk transition, but there's no gas, which is weird to me. Oh well, I guess I have some interesting experiences with this matchup. In any case, we do have the gas being thrown on now. It is only 2 for now, but we should see more thrown on later, as that gas is extremely important for our Zerg players. There is no 3rd and 4th gas yet thrown on by our Protoss player either, and that is indicative of a semi-low-tech play. This could be some sort of gateway timing, it could be an extremely fast 3rd base, could be a lot of things here, but definitely not anything like lots of alright, so we do see them now, but we're not going to see like 15 Century Immortal all in or something like that. There's not enough gas for that. Well, excuse me, Void Ray all in. So it will be the Oracle. The Overlord actually does spot the Oracle and the gateways going down, so he will be privy to this. He will know that something's up. His Roach Warren is only about halfway done now. He's only starting Zergling speed right now, and the Robo's starting for a Protoss player. This could be a little bit dangerous for the Protoss here, because if he plans to move out, like, he's going to have a very hard time getting things done. Oracle killing off a Queen here, going for a couple of drones. That is quite a few kills on our little, Oracle here. Queen does move in and pushes the Oracle out, but he is going to need a handful of Spore Crawlers to keep this out of here. One does go down, but there are none in the other mineral lines here. Roach speed coming down as well as +1 attack. This will keep the Zerg player even with the Protoss in terms of upgrades. Twilight going down for our Protoss player. And you know what that means? That means we're probably going into some sort of 2-base Blink Immortal. It's very late for that though. That's the thing. And it doesn't help that the Overlord has scouted all of this. Now, in the PvZ matchup, there's a couple tiers of scouting. You can scout, like, as the Zerg player, if your Overlord runs in and you scout... Oh, wait. Oracle not going to find any damage here. If you run in with the Overlord and you scout a Stargate, or if you scout a Twilight, it's like, okay, the Protoss player's like, well, whatever. He saw a Twilight, he was probably expecting that anyway. I'm still going to micro my way to victory either way, that sort of thing. If he scouts a Stargate, you're like, okay, well, my Oracle's not going to do a ton of damage instead. Like, okay, whatever, like, that's not too bad. Then, if he scouts, like, 3 or 4 gateways, ooh, Oracle going down there. He did get a lot of kills, so that Oracle did pay for itself, but kind of sloppy letting it die there to just 1 Queen. We do see a bunch of roaches coming across the map now. This should be deflected pretty easily with this amount of sentries and the couple of cannons that are up here. No 3rd base being dropped yet because of those pesky Overlords. But as I was saying, if he sees like 3 or 4 gates dropped, you're like, okay, well, this is a pretty bad spot because he knows I'm going to be doing some sort of 2-base pressure. And then there's the final tier and the worst tier, and that's if he scouts a Robo Bay, or a Robo Facility. Alright, I don't know the difference. Robo Facility. If he scouts a Robo Facility, it means you're doing a 2-base timing, and that's terrible. With a couple of gates being thrown down, okay, yeah, that's going to be pressure, but that's not an all-in, right? Like, you can still transition 3-base off of that. But the moment he sees a Robo, he knows it's going to be into some sort of, like, 2-base all-in, 2-base, like, blink pressure, these sorts of immortal, big stalker, sentry count all-ins, and it's just going to be a bad time trying to fight Hydralisks and Roaches when he knows it's coming, you know? Like, we have Hydralisks already popping out, Burrows on the way, not muscular augments, what is this called? I wish I could see the name. I have tooltips turned off, though. Whatever the Hydra range upgrade's called. Grooved Spines? I think that's what it is. Grooved Spines is nearly completed. +2 is about a quarter of the way done, and he's got a lot here. Mind you, +1 armor for a Protoss player will be finishing up fairly soon. Templar Archives nearly halfway done. He has a decent... Okay, that's a subpar sentry count right there. They all do have semi-full energy, though. We actually have a small Roach Ball with Hydras moving across the map right now. Guardian Shield activated. Force Fields need to be good. Blink forward onto the Roaches, able to pick a few of them off. No Force Fields, though, to hold this sort of thing off. A couple of sloppily rallied Hydras, able to pick off the Mothership Core, actually. No Time Warp or Recall thrown down, just sort of lets it go. Wall is sort of open here. One Zealot being warped in will sort of prevent that. A Couple of cannons. Good concave on the low ground by our Zerg player. Can't really move down. The Protoss player is isolated from his base, and he's potentially going to lose a lot here. He can't really run into this. Immortal does come down from its rally, and it almost killed a couple of things there, but pulled back, unfortunately. Zerg player did sort of ruin his concave there, moved back and sort of balled up, but it's still very difficult as the Protoss player to move down the ramp into this. Mothership Core will end up dying again to a Hydralisk, which is very unfortunate. Zerg player decides to break the contain himself and move on out. Small Zealot run by, scooting into the third base. Transfuses on the Spine Crawler will be enough though. Will these roaches go down? One roach goes down. Will the second one fall? So close. The second roach will fall. Queen takes no damage. Couple of Hydras sloppily rallied here. Protoss player does decide to break down the rocks to cut off one of the potential attack paths that the Zerg player can take. He's got plenty of static defense here at his third base, and so he only really needs to worry about engaging here. One of the big problems that can come of this, though, is if the Zerg player decides to attack in this sort of back rocks area. He has a sentry there to sort of contest that, but the Zerg player is just going to bust down these rocks, and he's going to have a hard time moving down this ramp against a couple of force fields and a lot of Blink Stalkers. Observer spots all of this as well. The upgrades are +2 against 1-1. Storm is finishing up right now for our Protoss player. No force fields yet. Those weren't the best force fields. They definitely didn't trap. They trapped one roach. Like, that's... Nah. Spire nearly finished. Infestation Pit started up for our Zerg player. I think going from here, though, the Protoss player is looking to transition out of this. Could get a couple good force fields here on the ramp. Protoss player is not quite paying attention. Very good force fields there. Blocks off a large chunk of those roaches and separates the Hydras up onto the low ground. Now the transition here is... Oh, lots of roaches burrowing into the main base, picking off a couple of workers here. Not a whole lot left here to defend this. Bunch of High Templar here, actually not in well, they're not really the units you want to defend against a couple of roaches. Also does reveal the Templar tech and the fact that he's going Storm and not Archons, which is pretty big tell here. A little bit sloppy letting a couple of the Stalkers be picked off for free. Still roaches in, or one roach in the main base. We're looking for a transition here from the Protoss player. What is he going to go into in the late game? He's got High Templar, but is he going into more like Colossus after that? Or is he going into more like Archons and Immortals and not really transitioning out of this tech line? And that's going to be a very big decider here as to where the Zerg player will go, because obviously he can't stick on Roach Hydra forever either. If it's a Colossus-based composition, then Ultralisks are going to be the answer, but if it's not, and if it's like a more Immortal and Archon-based composition, then he's going to want to go into something like Broodlords, or even just like Roach Hydra Viper, as that can prevent that sort of thing from snowballing too much. Now, our Zerg player, he's got a lot of options from here. He has the Infestation Pit, he's got the Spire, and he's got a couple of Corruptors out right now. Maybe misreading that the Protoss player was going Colossus, because the Protoss player doesn't even have a Robotics Bay. He doesn't have any sort of Colossus tech even on the way yet. Mothership Core actually being just remade right now. That's a little bit sloppy by our Protoss. He would be able to move out on the map and do essentially whatever he wanted from this position, as if he was in a bad spot, he could just sort of storm to zone and then recall out. We have +2/+2 on the way from our Protoss player and no extra upgrades out of our Zerg. He could be getting +2 armor, but his hive is not yet complete yet, only just now starting. This one roach being really annoying here, just sort of pecking away at the shields. of the building Protoss structure. A couple of Zealots here being super lazy, not sort of dealing with this. But our Protoss player is starting to move out and be more aggressive on the map now, clearing up a bit of creep with some Blink Stalkers. Pro tip, guys, 4 Blink Stalkers one-shots a creep tumor, so you can sort of walk 4 Blink Stalkers forward and not be entirely scared of losing your whole army or getting it fungled or whatever. Whoa, it just started spontaneously raining outside and only half the sky is covered in clouds. Alright, sick. Now we could be seeing a sort of base race here. Protoss player is aggressing the 4th base, and the Zerg is running into the 3rd here with a lot of cannons to defend, but that's not going to hold off this amount of Roach Hydra forever. Protoss player decides, you know what, F it, we're going. And then he goes into the 4th, 5th base of the Zerg player and looks to essentially end this game out. I would like to see him maybe position these High Templar differently or transition them into Archons, as you need as much DPS as you can possibly get on the buildings and stuff. Now, note that none of these High Templar here at home have Storm yet. They're all just a couple energy short, and these could end up getting picked off before they have Storm energy. Both of them will have Storm energy, at least 1 Storm apiece, and that could be enough to sort of scare this army back. Now the Protoss player is playing this out very, very nicely, splitting up his units between the 2 bases. Needs to make sure his Stalkers are all shooting the buildings though, and not the Overlords. Shooting the Overlords is nice because it prevents the player from rebuilding to an extent, because they get supply blocked and all that sort of thing. But killing the buildings is much more important, because if they don't have any buildings, then they can't win the game. Protoss player actually making a little bit of a mistake here, I think. He's not leaving any units behind to kill these structures. This means that if the Zerg player pulls any drones out, which he does have here that he can pull out, he can make any sort of structure he wants. A couple of Mutalisks, for some reason, getting stormed out and pushed out. A couple of Hydralisks and Roaches just sort of chilling here. A lot of probes as well. And it looks like the Zerg player is going to come back. I don't think this is a very smart position or decision by the Zerg player, as he could be just killing the Protoss base right now. Sure, the probes got out, but he can't fight against Storm and Blink right now. He simply can't. Now, the Zerg player still does have structures. He's got a lot of money. He's got a handful of drones. He's got a lot of supply structures left over. He can still recover from this in an economic way. He can sort of recover this game. The Protoss player is not in such a good situation. He has a handful of probes. He's got 24 probes right now to the 12 of the Zerg, but his base is in shambles. He doesn't. His only tech structures right now are a Stargate and a Templar Archives. He's lost all of his outer bases, and he's only just now getting up his next expansion. Zerg player is sitting on top of one of his bases with a handful of Mutalisks. I don't understand the decision to make a bunch of Mutalisks here. Like, maybe it's because they're a lot more mobile, but this amount of Blink Stalkers with Storm, you're never, ever, ever going to get into a good situation against Mutalisks. In any case, our Protoss player does start to batter down this hive here, and I don't know what the Zerg player's answer to this is. He needed to go hard on the Protoss's main base, knock out all of those structures there, and then move into trying to scoot around the Protoss army and try and pick off what he can. But instead, he sort of dilly-dallied. That's the phrase I'm looking for. Dilly-dallied in the middle of the map, not doing a whole lot. He could still technically win this. Man, the Protoss player is so close. All he needs to do is kill this hatchery and this extractor right here, and yet he's going back to his base. There's 18 drones on the map, but there's actually no Zerg structures left over except for those 2. Alright, one more hatch being started up in the corner base there, so it's whatever. But I think he really should have left a lot more units here to kill these, because as long as you keep these structures at a minimum and kill as much as you can, like, you can leave half your army there, and as long as you're aware of, like, the map, like, if you keep your Blink Stalkers there, and keep your Templar with your army, your Blink Stalkers can't be killed by the Mutas, and neither can the rest of your army because of the Storm. And at the same time, neither of the armies can die to Roach Hydra because the Stalkers can just blink away, and of course you have Storm and Force Fields with your other army. Now this is going to turn into a pretty hairy situation for our Protoss player here. He's got like a bunch of pylons and cannons and stuff, which will potentially deflect the mutas. Depends on how many... Okay, well he's got a Phoenix, so he can potentially kite these mutas forever. And if he leaves a Mothership Core at home, he'll be able to photon overcharge and really hold this base fairly easily. It's going to be a bit of a problem though, trying to expand past this. Whereas, ooh, good blink there on the Mutalisk, able to pick off a handful of those. Phoenix needs to be careful, does pull it back. But we have 4 bases on the map now for the Zerg player, and what is the Protoss' answer to this? He's on 1 base. He is mining right now, and he's mining a lot more. His income is substantially better right now, considering the position we're in. But he's got no tech structures. The Zerg player doesn't really have a whole lot of tech structures either, but he's in a better position to get tech structures. He's got a ton more in the bank. He's not supply blocked is I think the major thing. He's actually able to augment his army and his units with far more stuff. This is a very scary force from the Protoss player though. Mind you, if he just sort of moved across the map and just killed bases over and over again, I feel like the Zerg player would be at a very, very big deficit here, because he can't keep replacing bases forever, and he can't pressure this base with Mutalisks because of the amount of cannons. And with the Mothership Core there for the recall, like, he can't really pressure that base with the Roach Hydra either. So I think the Protoss player really should just be playing more aggressive here. He's got the tech advantage, he's got the army advantage. The army supply is actually in favor of the Zerg, but with storms and force fields, like, that army supply advantage doesn't really mean anything. Ooh, a little bit sloppy here, almost losing a High Templar. That was a little bit too close. We see Mutas moving across the map right now. Big blink forward, able to pick off 2 Mutalisks so far, and every bit of damage you can do to the Muta count is very important, because you don't want those scooting around killing off your buildings at all. Now this is a fresh base for the Protoss player, so he won't mine out for a very long time, but at the same time it's 3 bases up for our Zerg player. He does look to be posturing on the map though. It looks like he's going to go aggress this base of the Protoss player, but there's so many cannons here. And with the recall too from the Protoss, like, it doesn't seem like the Zerg player is going to get that much done. Now, he is killing off some of the workers and some of the buildings, but again, not focus firing. He's not chasing down the drones, and he's still leaving buildings alive. And this has been the major downfall of the Protoss thus far, is he's focusing down overlords. Just go over and kill the base. If you kill all the structures, he leaves the game automatically. Zerg player outside the Protoss' base now needs to get in position for a recall, and he looks to be doing that right now. Zerg player does move up into the base. Protoss player is going to recall in. A couple of Stalkers being picked off in the warp, but the cannons holding the line for now. Big storms on the Hydralisks here. A lot of Hydras getting picked off. Double Guardian Shield being dropped down, as well as Photon Overcharge. And it looks like our Protoss player has pushed this push away for now. A lot of the Hydralisks is very low on HP. A lot of the Roaches as well, sitting at about half HP. And the Protoss looks to have easily deflected this push. He's got a lot of money in the bank. And, really, he lost a lot of his army too. And that was fairly inefficient, being directly on top of those units and taking a lot of damage. But he still has storms, so he can still get his way back into this if he does have good storms. Now, this is getting into a scary, scary position for our Protoss player, though, because he can't take another base. Not against Mutalisks, not against this amount of mobile Roaches and Hydras. And our Zerg player's up to 4 bases. Well, okay, 3 bases. And he's starting to produce more stuff now. He's remaking his hive. He's remade his spire. He's remade the infestation pit. And the Protoss player can't really move out onto the map anymore. He's got to stay sort of contained in his base, and that means the Zerg player essentially is very far ahead now. He can do whatever he wants on the map. As long as he has the Protoss player in a very nice contain, he's going to take this. Now, what I'd like to see the Zerg player do is position half of his army right here, and position the other half right about here, or, well, here and here, considering where the Protoss's army is, and then just sort of pincer move this base here, or at the very least just contain it. Because the longer you can keep this Protoss on one base, the further and further ahead you're going to get. I don't understand the decision to keep making Mutas from this position. I would have maybe liked to see, like, if he made Ultras right now, or like Broodlords, what is the Protoss player going to do? Literally nothing. He is making the Greater Spire now, so he is doing that transition to Broods, but he should have... Okay, well, he's got the bank to make these. I would have maybe liked to see a bigger investment into something else, so that he could save up on gas and make an even bigger swell of Broodlords and make it like a not even contestable position. Because the thing is, like I said, what are these Mutalisks going to do against Blinkstalker's Storm and this many cannons? They can't harass this mineral line. They can't really do a whole lot. They just sort of run around being cute, I guess. These aren't really cute. They're kind of gross. Let me like zoom in on this fellow. Hey, how's it going, Mr. Mutalisk? Yeah, they're not very cute. Kind of gross. Protoss player is starting to warp in now again, and he's got a handful of gateways and more stalker capabilities. And the Zerg player is still not containing the Protoss, not making use of his ample Muta count. What is this? This is like 20-something Mutalisks, and he's not doing anything with them. Actually, the Zerg player making double Greater Spire? I don't know why that would be. That was weird. Either way, he has 6 Broodlords on the way and a couple of Corruptors, so it looks like it depends on how good the Storms and the Blinks are. Because if the Protoss player is able to blink directly under the Broodlords, there's no blinding clouds and there's no fungals to prevent that from happening. And so if he gets good Storms and good Blinks on top of the Broodlords, he can still pull this back. But it all depends on how well he's able to get under those. We saw this sort of play in Wings of Liberty a lot. It was another Spire. I don't understand why he's throwing down so much tech. He's wasting so many, or so much gas, excuse me, on just needlessly, when he could be spending it on Broodlords in an army that can't be contested. A bunch of Broodlords here assaulting the base. They kill off all of the workers, and these are going to go uncontested. That's the thing. They kill off all of the cannons. It's only Photon Overcharge left over, and this giant line of Mutalisks is going to be able to do essentially whatever it wants. Protoss player takes another base, but he's not killing structures again. Like, he's sort of killing structures. He's actually left a good amount of units behind this time, but what is he going to do against this amount of Mutalisks right now with his army severely out of position? Another Photon Overcharge comes down, but this is too many Mutalisks to deal with just Photon Overcharge. Going to see a big blink under the Mutalisks here. Able to snipe 1, 2 of them. Looks like the Mutalisks are not looking to get out of here, but there just doesn't seem to be enough Stalkers. A couple of sentries coming in now, but that's not really what you want against a big swell of Broodlords. And we see, like, this base being taken down so easily, all of the tech being taken down. The production structures of the Protoss are going to be next, but it's not like he had a whole lot of money anyway. He's got so much gas. I would have liked to maybe see him throw down another Templar Archives, get some Archons, something like that, but there's so many Broodlords. And it all depends on how well he can trade with these Broodlords here. It's going to depend on one fight. He's harassing the Zerg player on a couple of his bases, but the Zerg is taking even more. Like, the Zerg essentially has the whole map, and the tech advantage, the army supply advantage, the production advantage, and Protoss player does not even blink on top of the Broodlords, just loses a couple of Stalkers for free to Broodlings there, and this looks to be pretty much it for our Protoss player. He just can't contest this army. Couple of kind of decent Storms, blinks under the Broodlords, able to pick one off, but that's going to be it. There simply was not enough there for our Protoss player, and that is going to do it for him. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is Walnut. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to check out my Twitch stream. I am starting up 2 new projects, the first of which has already aired its first episode, and that is Cracking the Shell, and that is my Legacy of the Void analysis show. The next episode will be tomorrow, Monday, June 8th, and it will be on the PvZ Gate into Forge, well, all matchups really, Gate into Forge Expand. as well as the new gaming talk show I am going to be doing called Bridging Gaps. And yeah, just be sure to check me out. There are going to be a lot of new videos, a lot of new content coming from me in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to the guys over at r/castit who give me replays to cast every single day, or stretching cycles of days, Kappa HD. But yeah, see you guys next time.